Welcome to Junkyard Haunts, where we turn trash into haunts. Today we're going to be making a freestanding tree. In order to make this tree the way we're making it, you have to have a lot of containers. So I have been saving up for a while. But also we want to build up the bottom container that we have. We want it to be a really thick container. And we want to put a lot of weight in it so that the tree won't blow or fall over. All of our weight's going to be in this very bottom container. So I actually have some thin set mortar here that I'm just going to use, where I add a little bit of water to it and then it's going to turn into basically concrete, which is pretty heavy. But if you don't have anything like that, then just rocks, a whole bunch of rocks, a whole bunch of anything that just weighs a whole lot to fill in that bottom one. And then we're just going to take all of our mini containers that we have saved up and build them up into a tree shape. Obviously, you want to start with the biggest containers at the bottom and then stack them up, each size the same, until you run out of those containers. And then you just move on to your smaller ones and keep stacking and stacking and stacking. Notice I have a lot of Clorox wipes. If we can just get Clorox to sponsor this, that would be great. But any container that is cylinder will work. And we'll just use a lot of tape to just build them up, and you don't want to go in a straight line. You just bend, twist, and turn them as you go. That way the tree looks a little more crooked and gnarly and looks more realistic, really. To actually build some branches off of this, I take the lids of one of those things and tape it on, and then just kind of use that to give an angled support. So the branch part, I'll stick the bottom part of the next container onto that lid that is now taped on, and then tape the top to the other part. That way it's at an angle. It doesn't have to do that. You could just have it go straight out, but I just figured this gives the most support to do it that way. And again, use whatever containers you have. I have a lot of soda here. I have peanut butter jars. I have lemonade containers. I have dishwasher containers. Whatever that is cylinder that you have, you just go ahead and tape it on and build it up. I actually don't drink a lot of soda, despite what this looks like. This seriously took a very long time to save up all of these containers to make sure I have it. And I will be using a ton of tape through this process, so make sure you have a lot of tape. This tree is pretty heavy at the base. All of that is being held up basically by the weight of the bottom container, but we want to give it a little bit more support. And we're going to do like we did on our gravestone, our waterproof gravestone, by taking some PVC pipe and just taping it around the bottom. We block a hole in one side of the PVC pipe, and I'm just doing that with hot glue gun. And then when we tape the part with the hole still facing down, that way if you put this in your yard, you just put stakes into the ground and then put these straight through there, and the stakes will keep the tree from moving around too much. Also, this tree is standing on its own, as you see. However, it's very easy to tip over. You just push a little bit and it will tip. So we're going to build out our base so that if you push it over, these sticks dig into the ground and will prevent it from, actually falling over. So what I did, I took 4 sticks and just put them all at an angle, and I both hot glue gunned and taped it down, make sure it's really secure. And it's surprising that these sticks do such a good job, but it really does make gives the tree so much more balance, so it's no longer easy to fall over. We do need to build that base up though, so it actually looks more like a tree, because at the bottom, trees always branch out or a little bit thicker there when they go into the ground. We're going to simulate that by putting on the base of cardboard that we obviously cut out the little holes so that the sticks can go into the ground up through those PVC pipes. Then we just tape the sticks onto the cardboard and cut the cardboard into a more circle shape. And that will give us the more base of what a tree actually looks like. And I, again, just go crazy with the tape. I make sure that this thing is taped on, it is secure. As of right now, it actually does. It's really sturdy in support. We could just literally throw that outside right now and it will not tip over or blow over or anything. But we obviously want to make this look more real, so I'm taking more cardboard and building up that cylinder shape at the base to both hide those sticks and to make it look more like, you know, one unison tree instead of built from a whole bunch of crappy parts. And because of how I'm doing it, it did create those little gaps, so I'm just filling that in with more cardboard. But those other little parts that I have, we're actually going to go ahead and paper mache this. So paper mache will cover up a lot of the holes, and so I wasn't too worried about making sure cardboard is covering up every little inch. Paper mache will both also add structure to this. It'll make it even more secure, but the one thing that I always like about paper mache is that it makes everything look more like one piece. Paper mache hides any creases or cracks or the edges of cardboard, which don't look good. It actually makes it look like one piece. Now this did take a long time to paper mache. I'm actually doing a slightly different technique for this because I wanted that paper mache to be a lot thicker and we had to cover up such big gaps. So for the most part, it still starts off the same, where you mix flour and water and mix it up till it's just slightly runny. So the slightly different technique than I've seen in the past is I'm actually taking a piece of newspaper, put a little bit of paper mache on it, and then fold it in half, or put another piece of newspaper right on top of that piece that is about the same size. Then I rub it down with paper mache on the new double thickness piece of newspaper. And I slap that on and then use more mixture to rub on top of it so it's nice and smooth. What this does is it actually makes the newspaper really thick and it won't tear or rip on you, and it will make it so you don't have to put so many layers on. I actually only did this one layer over the whole tree because of doing it this way. I mean it is 2 pieces of newspaper, just doing it at once. And I find that this technique works really well, both for covering large areas and making it really super thick and much more sturdy. And you just have to follow and cover the entire tree. Over time, tape will actually peel off, so that's not a very good base on there. Even if we like painted over that tape to make it look like a tree, which we're obviously going to paint this at the end, over time that tape will actually peel off. Well, paper mache will stay on forever, basically. So this makes sure that it stays strong and that it won't peel or fall apart. A special part that you want to pay attention to is where those branches break off. You'll actually want to probably layer that up a few more times there, because when this dries, it will also make sure that those branches don't rip off very easily. Just so you're aware of time on this, I did during this, I paper mache'd it when I got bored. I would stop and then come back the next day and keep finishing. There's no rule that you have to do this entire tree in one day with this stuff. Here I'm showing you a nice close-up of the actual paper mache process. So I take a big sheet of newspaper, put a little bit of paper mache in there, fold it back in half, and then I cover one more side of paper mache, and I cover one more side with that mixture, and then I throw it on the tree, rub more mixture in my hands, and then pat the newspaper on. And this worked really great, covered large areas. It did not actually take as long as you can imagine. Now we actually need to build up texture onto this, and I'm using great stuff. You do not want this on your hand because it sucks, so make sure you put on gloves like I am, and then you just want to spray it out and pat it down onto the tree. Make sure it sticks and you're getting every little part. This is a new can of great stuff. If you saw the last time I used that when I make vines, I was using an old can, which was very hard trying to get stuff out, but I figured I'd go through more than one can because of how big this tree is. So I did just get some new stuff and didn't use leftovers like I did in the past. When you squirt this on, you really don't want to have big chunks on there. You want to squirt some of this great stuff on and really pat it down. The more you pat it down and the less it looks like it's on in the beginning, it's actually better. This thing does expand and get bigger, so you do want to make sure there's just a thin layer. It looks more like bark that way. If you have too many thick spots, it looks like great stuff, really. So this, just remember and keep in mind that while you're spraying this stuff on, if you're like, this doesn't look good because it's barely even covering it, that little part of great stuff does add tiny little bumps and does create the bark look that a tree would have. I'm going to be releasing videos of props that I make every Monday, so make sure you subscribe and follow along and share with all your friends. Now we are going to try to make this thing somewhat waterproof, and the best way to do that is to get some exterior latex paint. Usually when I paint stuff, you want to get a dark color, and then we'll slowly brighten it up through different dry brush techniques. But this is the exterior brown paint that I had, so I just started with this. But that's okay, we'll still be able to make our tree look scary and creepy in the end. When you paint this, make sure you cover every little part, because this is your biggest waterproof coating. And even those little holes at the bottom, make sure you get into those quite as far as your brush can go. And then we just had the fun task of painting the entire tree with this color. Use a lot of paint, make sure you cover up every little bit. And since this is such a large tree, go ahead and recruit some help. I'm actually working with another YouTube channel using his music to fill in the background. Now is probably a good time to go ahead and just let you listen to some of his music. Don't forget to check out his channel. The link to his channel is in the description, so follow along and check out his good music too. Now because my brown was actually kind of bright, I actually wanted to darken it up a bit, and one of the best way to do that is to actually create a wash that you put onto the tree. And as you can see, my helper will be helping me do that. Here is the simple process of making a wash. Have a whole bunch of water and add paint to it. I'm just using straight black into this water and trying to put on as much of this basically water and cover up the tree as much as I can. As you can see, it's already waterproof, which means the water is running off of it, which is a good sign. And because of that, you're just gonna have to put on so much of this water to be able to do that. Here's my little helper trying to get the higher parts. I only put on one coat, but I used that entire bucket to be able to cover this entire tree though. So I just put so much on to hope that it will darken it up and make it look more creepy. You see I mixed it in a smaller container but then dumped it out into this larger container. I ended up doing that just so it would be easier to dip my brush in and out. It was kind of hard to stick it into that mason jar. So that's all. Just make sure you pick a good container to mix this paint in. And we are going to do a little bit of a dry brush by mixing this brown paint with a little bit of white, so it's a little brighter. And the order to dry brush, you just dip your little bit of paint on that brush, rub it off a little bit, and then just re-go over the tree again. I have some cool props coming up shortly, so don't forget to subscribe and check them out. And then lastly, if you aren't planning on putting this outside too much, you could probably skip this step, but this is going to be the last step to make it waterproof. We're putting spar urethane all over the tree. For sure, make sure you have something underneath your tree, because when this stuff drips, it gets sticky and it's very hard to get off of anything. You should probably wear gloves too. I know I didn't, but you don't want this on your hands. It's really hard to get off. Thanks for watching that video. My brother challenged me to make this freestanding tree, so in your face, brother. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, I have a Facebook page that the link is in the description if you want to follow along on there as well. And we'll be posting some cool things over there. The Facebook page will also be a great location for you to upload your pictures so I can see this crazy things you guys make. Make sure you leave a comment below. Tell me what you want me to make in the future. You could just turn this into a punching bag and trick all your friends that you're punching a real tree because this looks so real. And then be like, yeah, it doesn't even hurt my hand. I'm macho.